Hey, this is Vince Omega, and in this video I just wanted to go over how to properly set up a pre-made Ajax styled file uploader. This one can actually be downloaded at valums.com. It's been out for a while. As you can see, it's been out for around 2 years, but I noticed it's not, I mean, there's documentation on it, but the documentation on it is kind of well, it's not really documentation on it. It's just a brief, and I do mean a brief overview of how to use it, the file uploader, but not necessarily how to set it up. Now, the neat thing about this particular Ajax file uploader is that you don't happen to need a outside library like Ajax or MooTools or Prototype or even Flash. So you can just use this regular vanilla JavaScript, but it doesn't really necessarily have to tell you how to set it up with that either. So with that said, and there's a couple other things that the author really didn't think about at the time, because you know, most people already have this set up. But if you happen to be a novice programmer or someone who just happened to not go into like things like the PHP initial file or like htrss access, then these things probably won't be set up, and you'll run into a bit of problems using this particular uploader. So this video is just basically going to be a very brief way to set this up. So of course, after you download the particular file itself, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put it in wherever you got the your server files. I happen to be using the XAMPP server because it's easier to install. If you're using XAMPP, you go into ht docs, and that's where you actually decompress the zip. As you see, I have a whole bunch of folders set up. These are basically websites that I'm currently working on, and one that I'm pretty much done. It's just gotta tweak out a couple of bugs. I stuffed the Ajax uploader there. It's not in the jQuery Ajax uploader. It's not in that file. It's actually out of the files kind of mixed in with that. The bulk of the Ajax file uploader is basically file uploader.js, and it comes with a PHP uploading script, but it also comes with I believe a JavaScript, a Perl script, and a couple of other server-side scripts based on whatever language you like using. I am most familiar with PHP, even though I'm familiar with Java, with Java. I am familiar with JavaScript, but even though I'm familiar with Java too, I feel more comfortable using PHP as a particular server-based language because that's pretty much what it's designed for. But basically, if you were to open file.js, let's see, where is it? It basically comes with two different models that you can use. Besides a whole bunch of classes that he defined to help actually get the uploader to work, there are two different classes that you can use to basically create the an instance of the file uploader. There is QQ file uploader and QQ file uploader basic. Basic is basically the file uploader without the styling. And QQ basic, QQ basic is basically the uploader without styling, and file uploader is the uploader itself, though you can customize file uploader just by passing JSON options to it. So basically, in whatever page you want to set up, you would have to actually define the script either in the body or the heading. If you're going to do this with vanilla JavaScript, what you're going to do is you want to define an event listener. You're going to grab the element of ID, and you want the action to be either a loading action or like a clicking action. Basically, you want it to wait until the file uploader.js has already been fully loaded into the document object model, or the DOM, before you actually call the script. Once you do that, define the script as a variable. You don't necessarily have to define the script as a variable. It makes it easier to actually call the script through the add event listener, or you can just call the function itself. But the reason why you probably want to define a variable is because you can actually pass JSON objects through the parameters, which is only one parameter of either file uploader or file uploader basic. Now the two options you most definitely want to pass, even though you can pass more than just these two, are element, which basically element is going to be the divider element or the span element or whatever HTML element that you have, that the HS uploader is going to be attached to, and it's going to load up in. So in this test page, I set up a div called file uploader, and I'm calling it through get element by ID, which I'm also doing again through element. In action, think of it as like when you're defining a HTML tag, the form tag, you have to define an element. I mean, you have to define an action. The action is going to be the server-side script that's going to handle the uploading. So for this, when you pass it through a JSON object, you actually have to define the whole URL. So if you're doing it locally, it's going to be HTTP localhost Trina, well, not Trina, but whatever folder you have it in, and the script itself. Now, if you're doing it on a web server, of course, you have to have it by the server domain, or even a server subdomain, then the domain, then whatever folder you got it in, and then the script. Essentially has to be an absolute path, is what I'm saying. You can also pass other options onto it as well. I'm trying to get to them. But you can do things like define the button, define the size of the button. Well, if I go back to the page, you can basically determine how big the file you want uploaded to be at the max and at the minimum. You can set default options. You can pass through events as JSON objects, and you can actually create your own parameters if you wish. But basically, in order to actually get it to just work at the bare minimum, what you want to do is just pass an element option and get the element by ID, or if you're using jQuery, you're going to use the selector function instead. And action is going to be the absolute path to the script. Now, for the script itself, if you're using PHP, as you can see, it looks a little complicated. He created a couple of classes that actually handle the uploading, whether it's XHR capable, or if it's not, then you use a standard uploading. Use a standard post uploading capabilities of PHP. But there's really not much you have to do with this. You don't even have to, like, you can create your own script if you wanted to, if this looks too complicated, but honestly, it's not really hard to use. All you really have to do is for the allowed extensions. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the allowed extensions. Both in your server-side script and in the file uploader.js itself, you have to define allowed exceptions. You can pass that as an option, or you can define it within the class itself. So if you go to file uploader basic, that's essentially the prototype for file uploader itself. You can define allowed extensions, And you can do that here as well. You want to make sure they're the same. And size limit, you can define the size limit here. And you also have to do this on the server. I'll get to that in a minute. You don't have to do anything on uploader. And now results, oddly enough, you had to put the path of wherever you're uploading the video to. Now, if you were looking at the code itself, you'll notice that the path object has already been defined as path, but it's being passed through functions. So what you're really seeing down here is that an instance of one of those classes being called and passing wherever you edit here as the path itself. So the only thing you really have to do with the server-side script, if you're using PHP, that is define the allow extensions, customize the size limit, and actually define the path that you want to upload whatever media that you have to the server. Now, I mentioned that you had to go on the you had to actually go into the server itself and define the size limit. Now, if you're using PHP, you have to go into PHP initial, and if you happen to have an Apache server, you also have to go into htrsspltn. Now, the size limit here is about 1024 megabytes, which is almost about a gigabyte of size of video. So what you have to do in PHP is, well, it's not 1000, I'm sorry, it's 10,240 megabytes, which is a little more than a gig, to be honest with you. Well, not a little more, but a lot more, almost like 10 to 9 gigs. But what you have to do is you have to go into PHP initial, and you have to define two things. You have to define upload. You have to actually change the limit for the upload file. Upload max file, you have to actually change to whatever you change the size limit in your PHP script, and you also have to do it for post max size as well. You want to make sure these sizes are the same. And then in HTAXS, what you want to do is you have to create two modules here, name them PHP value, and then upload max file size and post max file size. Basically, what you did in PHP initialize folder, and just put the same file sizes here. You also want to increase the memory. The memory has to be larger than the file size itself. Of course, stored memory is higher than that. But mainly the memory has to be about 3.2 times the size of the script itself. I believe that's what it was the last time I changed it, but generally you want to take whatever you made. You want to take whatever the size of the upload it is and multiply it by 3.2 just to be safe, but it has to be larger than has to be larger than the uploading script itself. Right now I'm just gonna give it a flat 30,000. Oh wait, no. I could have swore I changed that. Let's see. So after you got all of that set up, it should work. You should be able to actually go to the script. First, I'm gonna reload this, make sure everything's fine. And I have Firebug set up, so you can actually see what's going on. Click Upload File. See, there's a video I can upload. There we go. Boom, everything works right. And its duplicate is actually over here. Yeah, this is the duplicate right here, which I'm going to delete. You can also prevent duplicates as well, but I'm not going to really get into that. I just mainly want to show you how to set this up. Reason being is because, like I said, there wasn't really documentation on how to set up in order to get it to work. Like I said, the creator of the script probably assumed that you already increased the size of file uploads in your PHP initial file, and you already actually added those values into your htaccess file, which you would, because the default size, 10 megabytes, it's not large enough to upload anything nowadays. So, but basically, if you were having trouble setting up the script and getting it to work, that's essentially what you have to do. So yeah, you basically have to make sure the file itself doesn't upload until the DOM is ready. Through vanilla JavaScript, you just use the add event listener. Through jQuery, use the selector function, and then whatever other libraries you decide to use, you use whatever type of function that prevents it from loading until it actually loads. And using the PHP server-side script, you have to define the allowed extensions. You can do it here too. You can pass it through as a JSON object if you really want to do it, or you can go into file uploader basic and change the allowed extensions that way too. You can also, you should change the size limit and then change whatever size limit you got here in PHP initial file and inside the htaccess file. And you also want to change the memory, which you had to do in both PHP initial and htaccess. I think if you don't change the htaccess, it defaults back to the normal value in PHP initial. I think that's what happened in my case, because I know I changed it. And you can change the path of the uploads here, because it calls an instance of one of those classes and passes that along as the path variable. But that's basically how it works. This is an easy way to get something working on your site in case you want a script that uploads files and basically relays that information in real time. It can also handle multiple uploads too. You can actually go into JS uploader and determine how many connections that you want. Those connections determine how many files they can actually upload at once. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video helped some people out who were trying to use this particular tool and couldn't get it to work for the life of them. I know I had problems trying to set it up until I figured this out. But that's pretty much how it works. And like I said, hopefully you get some use out of it. It's Vince Omega, and I'm signing off.